Hey everybody, it's Kairos. In this video, I'm joined by the rank 1 Hecarim in North America, Doaenel. He's by far the most qualified Hecarim player I could find for this video. Tell me about your experience and achievements on Hecarim. You have over 4 million mastery points across your account, so what makes you the Hecarim expert?
I've been playing Hecarim since, I'm pretty sure, like season 6. Been one-checking him for the past few years now. For my peak, I hit 200 LP with Hecarim mid back in season 10. And then this season with Hecarim jungle, peaked 472 LP, Grandmaster. And then also playing on an Iron 4 MMR account, I did 45 wins, 0 loss solo queue. Ended up getting that account to like platinum with I think a 98% win rate. But yeah, that's about it.
Even since the nerfs in patch 11.9, he's maintained a 68% win rate on Hecarim over roughly 50 games. And today we'll analyze his decision making, pathing, and thought process. For the people who are interested in supporting you or learning more about Hecarim and staying up to date, what's the best way for them to do that?
As for just learning about the champion itself, my YouTube channel, which is just Doaenel, posts like 3 to 7 videos a week. Full gameplay, full commentary, going through thought process and everything like that. There's also like my Twitch streams. If you want to watch like more than just one video a day, then you can always go there. That's pretty much it, just like Twitch and YouTube for now.
And if you enjoyed this video and want to support my channel, the best way you can do that is to head over and follow me on Twitter and TikTok at Coach Kairos. I'm posting clips daily and will also be live tweeting MSI. Also, I'll be doing an RP giveaway for everyone who follows me and comments on the pinned tweet, so don't miss out on that. That's enough for the introduction. Let's get into gameplay. Just like every other gameplay review, the first step is to analyze the lanes and come up with a game plan. Walk me through your game plan with the matchups in these lanes of what you were trying to accomplish in the lane phase based on what you were working with.
Okay, so pre-game, Rek'Sai is like a really interesting matchup. So the thing about the Rek'Sai matchup in particular is that he's a champion who has a lot of burst, but once his burst is down, it's like he doesn't really have anything after that, right? So running Conqueror into this matchup specifically, it was like really good for me because it's like he does his initial combo, and then with my Conqueror fully stacked, I can just like usually out heal all his damage, right? That's why if I have matchups like this where I can fight, so matchups like let's say Lee Sin or Rek'Sai or Evelynn or Kayn, I'll always look to play around the enemy jungler rather than for my lanes. Whereas if let's say I'm versus an Olaf or Nocturne, which is like a really hard Hecarim matchup, I'm looking more to play off lanes rather than playing off like getting a lead through jungle.
So we can expect Doaenel to primarily look to exploit the jungle 1v1 advantage, especially with the lack of gank assist in most of his lanes. Top lane has some potential as it's super volatile with both of them opting for ignite over teleport, but even that lane is tough to gank as long as Singed has Ghost. Also, he can build a farm lead with his faster clear speed and put a lot of pressure on Rek'Sai to find successful ganks early to not become irrelevant by mid-game. Top lane shows early, and bot lane shows a little late, so we know Rek'Sai started with a leash on blue buff.
When I see that Rek'Sai starts on blue, it tells me one of two things. Either one is he's gonna full clear, or 5 camp clear into the top gank, or he's gonna 3 camp into the top gank. So in my mind, I'm just saying that I need to like just do my full clear. And if he's there on the top scuttle, which he 100% should be, then just try to be level 4 to his level 3. And if I can have that, then I'll for sure win the fight.
Notice how he kites camp's maximum range and then uses Q to finish off the camp. He does this to maintain his Q passive stacks, which really improves your clear on Hecarim. Maintaining 2 stacks increases Q's damage by 10% and decreases its cooldown by 2 seconds. So he always takes advantage of this, and you're actually able to keep your passive stacks up from Raptors all the way over to Wolves. So this is a really good optimization tip for your clear efficiency. We saw Lee Sin cash in his ignite early for first blood, and he recognizes the opportunity to freeze, and he resets. This means Singed will have to overextend to break the freeze, and he'll run the risk of getting ganked. But this also puts Lee in a position where he won't have priority for Scuttle Crab. Singed crashes the wave and uses that window to go and safely put a ward down, denying the easy top gank. Rek'Sai recognizes she won't be able to match the full clear speed before Scuttle to hit level 4, and instead she uses the double priority top and mid to invade and look to surprise Doaenel around Scuttle.
As soon as I get to this point, I'm like, okay, Rek'Sai hasn't shown yet, but we know that she's our bot side, so she's for sure going to be on this, right? So I was expecting her to come in, and I knew that she did have prio, but I also knew that with my double Q stacks as well as Ghost and my W off cooldown, I would be able to like probably win a 1v2. So that's why here, like, I do attempt trying to fight this. It does get pretty close, but then the exhaust ends up messing it up, and then I get killed. So after I lose that 1v1, it's not like game losing or anything like that, because even though I get slightly behind now, I still end up getting my Sheen. So it's a bad time, but it's not like completely awful.
With the Sheen buy, Doaenel is going for the Divine Sunderer build this game, which he's actually been playing ever since he saw the incoming 11.9 nerfs.
That's something I always do with Hecarim, is when I feel like there's going to be like nerfs or changes, I'll start changing the patch before, just so that when the patch actually comes out, I'm already like ready, I'm primed, you know?
An interesting note on the runes, he takes magical footwear and futures market in his secondary tree.
When you're going for this build particularly, your build is so expensive with Sunder that you need to get it as soon as possible. Anything that can reduce the amount of gold you have to spend on other components, you want to take.
And here, Doaenel just hovered bot lane for a little bit. Rek'Sai exited towards the Scuttle Crab and headed towards bot side. So this does two things. One, it is a potential gank window if Rek'Sai resets instead of staying around bot, or it denies the dive potential from her. And from here, he actually has a full sequencing from his Krugs all the way up to topside. So the second spawn of all of his camps, he's going to be getting a lot of gold, a lot of XP here. And this is where he kind of adjusts his game plan.
At this point in the game, I'm just looking to like do my own thing with farming and try to establish a lead through that, rather than like looking to constantly counter gank and try to like play off the Rek'Sai.
And now Rek'Sai ganks bot, opening up her top side of the map.
Yeah, so over here I'm thinking that I could either do top gank or just like topside invade. Topside invade's obviously the easier play to go for, but top gank still has potential because of no flash, singe, and ignite only.
Lee kind of forces his hand here by taking a really bad trade and falling into lethal range.
I could have instantly eat there, but I just kind of wanted to like run at him with my Q, because if I could have gotten like 2 Qs off and then used my arrow, then I would have killed him. But then I realized like, okay, he has way too much movement speed, so he'd actually...
Yeah.
like I just misplayed. If I had instantly used my E, we would have 100% won that.
There are a few unlucky parts of that play. Singed got caught on the wall from the Hecarim E animation and stayed in range of the Lee Sin. Then Singed hit level 6 off of the kill, and Ziggs decided not to walk over and use his ultimate in the river fight, but the end result is 2 more kills on a Singed. You start off 0-2, all of your lanes are losing, so in games like this, what's your thought process? Like, how do you prevent the tilt?
Preventing tilt is hard, but it just comes down to, I know that I still have a CS lead on the Rek'Sai, so I'm not actually like far behind compared to him. So I know that at the end of the day, if I can just like keep farming and just keep my eye open for opportunities, I still have ways to get a lead and maintain it.
Doaenel's third spawn jungle camps are coming up now, but instead of committing to a full clear, he notices an opportunity to secure Dragon. Although Rek'Sai is expected to be on bot side to pick up her spawning blue buff, Doaenel's level 6, along with a large wave shoving into the enemy bot lane, allows them to safely rotate over to it. Senate and Vayne lack wave clear, so they decide to freeze the wave instead of trying to clear it in order to rotate over to Dragon. So this is a pretty free pickup just looking at the lane states and the power spikes.
So at this point, like I could do a bot play, but I'm just kind of looking to, because the problem is if I, let's say, do Krugs and then go for bot gank and it doesn't work or I get counter ganked, then I just lose the game off that, right? But if I can just go for a full clear and then maybe look for something topside, then there's ways to get back into it. When you're behind especially, you don't want to look to actively make plays, but rather passively. So it's like I'm not going to look to force anything, but I'll see if anything comes to me, and then after that, I'll look for it. I never usually call Dragon plays, but the reason I went for this game is just because usually if I'm behind, I look to play more for objectives rather than just like leads. Playing for Drags always have impact, right?
Shortly after Dragon, Kai'Sa and Lulu take a slightly greedy rotation over to bot lane and get punished for it. Doaenel goes down to hover, but there's just nothing that he can do at this point, so he goes back into full clearing up into his top side with the 6 looking to cash in on that power spike. What made you pull the trigger on this play?
Once my full clear is done, there's no real opportunity to go for mid. So at that point, like top is the only real thing I could go for. So I was saying that since he was also worth a shutdown and he hadn't yet bought any like real defensive items besides the cloth armor, there could be potential for it.
Notice on this gank how he holds his ultimate and walks closer to Singed as he is trying to dodge it, and he gets into a range where it's almost a guaranteed hit. Rek'Sai comes in for the counter gank but isn't able to pick up a return kill, which is really big for Doaenel's team. And then after the play topside and jumping up over 20 CS ahead of Rek'Sai through really good camp sequencing, Doaenel's able to complete his Divine Sunderer at 10 minutes, which is a huge power spike for Hecarim. And failure to recognize these power spikes as well as the limits of the champion is what Doaenel believes gates a lot of Hecarim players.
The main mistakes that you'll see with Hecarim players is usually in not necessarily the mechanics themselves, but more so like limits. So they don't know when they can fight, and they don't know the limits of the champion. So for example, a champion like Riven, right? What separates a good Riven from a bad Riven is usually their mechanics. It's how they combo, it's how they trade, things like that. But Hecarim is a very basic champion. So what separates a good from a bad Hecarim is really like knowledge of limits. So it's knowing when you can take like 1v2s or 1v3s and stuff like that and end up winning them. Because with the way your W works with like the amplified healing and everything, it can allow you to literally just like 1v5 in certain scenarios. And a lot of people don't really kind of get that power. Like I just have so many games on this champion that I know exactly like what each power spike can give me into like whatever team comp. That's why I always look to force fights after I do get these like spikes like that.
He sees that bot lane is slow pushing towards his team, which means they'll have to overextend in the near future. So he goes and clears vision in anticipation of a potential gank soon, hopefully lining up with his ult timer. Then he sees a skirmish from the Lee Sin roam mid lane and heads over there just to pick up a kill, and then he returns to the bot lane, which he knew would have to overextend. Unfortunately, they split targets and aren't able to kill either the Senna or the Vayne here.
Like, to be fair, I did think that we'd be able to kill both, even if we did split focus. So it's just like because I got exhausted. Like, I instantly get exhausted, so like no real damage comes in, and I'm not able to like kill Senna because of that.
Senna just barely escapes. Ziggs decides to throw his bomb this time, but it's a miss. So Doaenel just heads back into his jungle, again cycling his camps full clear from bottom to top side. Rek'Sai shows up with the gank bot lane, but Doaenel knows that he won't be able to respond in time, so he doesn't deviate from the plan, just continues up with his full clear into top side. What makes you pick this over going into his top side straight away, or like what are you thinking once he shows up bot?
Well, because this Singed is just so far shut, I was thinking that maybe I could get something done with him.
Because he's squishy at this point. He's still really squishy.
Yeah, if he had gone for Bramble Vest, the game would have been a lot harder to win, but because he decided to greed for AP, it made it easier.
Knowing Hecarim's top side, the enemy team commits Herald to get the first turret bot and is likely to rotate to Dragon immediately afterwards. Doaenel makes the only play that he can on weak side and invades the red side jungle since he knows it can't be contested at the moment. Then Singed doesn't respect that he's weak side during the Dragon play and ends up losing a very close 1v2. After the kill, Doaenel crashes the wave to deny gold and XP to the enemy team and also to set it up to push back towards his team. He has his ultimate available though, so he's looking to stay on the map, and a standard rotation for the enemy bot lane after first turret would be to come into the top side, and he catches Senna in the jungle. Have you seen in high elo games a lot that they're doing these standard rotations of bringing their bot lane up into top side after first turret and Drake?
It depends. It depends. So like in high elo games, usually what happens is after bot gets first turret, they're either looking to rotate mid or top depending. So I mean, yeah, the bot lane will always end up switching lanes, but it's not always top lane necessarily.
After picking up the double kill, again he crashes the wave into top turret, and then seeing Rek'Sai on the bottom side, just goes in and invades the top side red buff that he knows is available. By this point, Doaenel has brought himself back into the game. He's been farming extremely efficiently and capitalizing on his power spikes, as well as a few opportunistic plays here and there. He completes his boots and picks up some components for Hysteric's Gauge before this anticipated Rift Herald fight for the second Rift Herald. And knowing he only has about 20 seconds before it spawns when leaving base, he skips the Krugs, which would take a little bit of time on his clear, and he just clears the Raptors, then the red buff to make sure the duration is as long as possible around the fight timer, and then he pats up into topside in order to contest the Herald before it could realistically be taken by the enemy team.
Krugs puts me like really out of the way, but if I just go for like Raptors red, then it's like it makes things a lot quicker. I guess I could have also done like Krugs red, but It's okay.
And just 2 levels up. This is really bad for her. I think not the lack of farming and the inefficiencies in her farming caught up with her, like, right there.
Because the thing about a champion like Rek'Sai is that when she's playing versus a full clear like Hecarim, it just becomes very easy for the Hecarim to get like a monumental lead if she's not just like completely shutting him down.
What do you think about the Herald drop? Because you got the pick on Rek'Sai, you kept this guy alive, and you have the wave pushed up here. Do you like dropping the Herald for pressure ahead of Dragon?
The thing about dropping Herald this game is that it just makes it a lot easier for us to like make plays around the map and like just not constantly be like hemmed in. And also with the Ziggs as well, like dropping the Herald does allow for even though it is like the tower does have a lot of health, he can just like finish it off with W.
After a successful siege mid, they all get to reset about a minute ahead of the dragon. Doaenel gets to finish up his Sterix, which is a pretty huge power spike, especially around these team fights that are breaking out in the mid game.
Especially for items like Sterix on Hecarim, because Sterix is an item that gives like a bunch of temporary defensive stats, and the shield allows you to get so much more healing with like your W and Conquer. So it's just like such an important spike. So now I get flung into middle them and I get my like
you get the W whatever. Also.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I could look for a play to ult on the Vayne Senna here, and if I do that, it could go really crazy. But I guess I didn't identify that opportunity at the time and was like way too focused on just the fact that I was slow. But if I would have ulted on those 2, that could have actually been like really crazy. But I mean, it's fine not going for that because I'm worth a shutdown too, so like not even risking it also has its benefits.
Yeah, and here, I mean, they just used everything on you, so it sets up for a pretty easy cleanup after the fact when they aren't able to burst through you. After the teamfight win, they're able to easily pick up the Ocean Drake, and Doaenel has completed 2 items and is feeling really strong in teamfights now. His early game farming has put him ahead of Rek'Sai come mid game, and he'll only outscale even more from here relative to her strength, so he's in a position to carry, and he adjusts his game plan at this point.
Well, at that point of the game, I'm really just looking to like force fights and find things to force fights over. So would there be like, let's say, contesting enemy buffs or Herald or Dragons, stuff like that?
And looking at the enemy team, they really don't have the tools to deal with Doaenel at this point. A fed Hecarim just needs quite a bit more peel than what the enemy team has to offer for the Vayne and Senna, and so his backline access is really good at this point, and so he's trying to play around that strength. And here comes one of those opportunities that he talked about. Kai'Sa is pushed up, farming the wave, and then gets collapsed on by the enemy team bot lane. And Doaenel swoops in, is able to one-shot the Vayne outright at the beginning of the fight. And then he opts into a 2v3 with just the Lulu. He's responsible for all of the damage, and the W usage along with the Lulu ult is just huge. He buys so much time, continues healing and getting damage down, then ends up trading what's ultimately a 3-for-3 at the end of the day. As it gets later into the game, the number one threat to his carrying the game is the Vayne, as she's able to cut through his health bar really well, and so that is the main thing that he's concerned with, is making sure that he takes her out of the fight before she can start putting down damage.
Yeah, it's just like unlucky. Playing versus Vayne is just it's just really hard to do because her true damage always messes you up. We just got really lucky this game that she didn't have an enchanter support. Because anytime Vayne gets an enchanter support, it just makes Hecarim's life absolutely miserable.
The next objective up is the Baron, and so just like his game plan indicates, they are going to try and force a fight around this. And the way that they're going to do that is by showing that they're going over to the Baron. They start it to get the enemy team to walk over, and then they can turn and look for engage. You're just trying to like bait them into a fight?
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what I mean by like trying to force, because at this point I'm super strong. So I'm saying like I just want to fight. Like I just want to try and force any play I can, because I know that will win.
The enemy team doesn't take the bait on the first go round. They stick to their guns and stay in the mid lane. They don't walk through fog over to the Baron. And then on the second attempt, they go for it again. The enemy team approaches but doesn't get quite into engage range. And then after that second attempt, the dragon is spawning soon, and so they shift their focus over to that objective as it'll put them on soul point. The enemy team is feeling the pressure with the dragon spawn coming up, and so they actually start the fight off on their terms, the only way they can, with Singed running in at the enemy team, and they end up using a lot of major cooldowns on the Ziggs, which just opens a really huge window for Doaenel to get in, use the ultimate, and just isolate the Senna very quickly, and then he's too tanky for the Vayne to deal with on her own, and they pick up that kill as well. And then they turn their focus as 4 over onto the Rek'Sai, who tried herself to dive the backline. And this is just a perfect example of how Doaenel wants to play these fights as we proceed into the late game.
Most champions will play like front to back, but Hecarim's a champion that really plays like back to front, so you're really looking to kind of like dive onto the enemy backline and then kill everyone. So here I'm just looking for a kind of like opportunity, because with me, unless I see like a really perfect opportunity for my R, I'll always try like engage with my E first and hold on to R as long as possible. I'm always just looking for like just for like ease, just like a small little damage burst, and then trying to bait out any abilities that the enemy might have. And then once those are bait out, then the R setup is perfect.
Now the enemy showing 4 mid, Kai'Sa is top, but they try and force what's a 4v4 turning into a 4v5 shortly by Doaenel frontlining and looking for that window on the engage.
So then I can like go in here and then get the R off. I mean, the R there is like not that great at all, because it only gets Senna, it doesn't even get Vayne, and then I get exhausted too, so it goes bad, but I'm able to get a kill on the Lux, which is good, and then I don't know.
Ultimately, you buy enough time here and you do enough damage to buy time. Like Kai'Sa wasn't there,
yeah, exactly.
And so she gets to rotate over and then clean this up after they've used everything on you and they're super low. Well, at first it might not seem worth it to trade the Hecarim for the Lux in that situation 1-for-1. What Doaenel does is he absorbs all of the focus and all of the damage from the enemy team. By diving the backline, he actually draws 4 people to aggro onto himself, while Rek'Sai goes in and gets focused down much quicker than he is, which ends up buying his team a lot of time for Kai'Sa to rotate over from top lane to come in and pick up the kills at the tail end of the fight, and it's a very easy team fight win because of how much time he bought for his team and how much focus and damage he absorbed. The next objective up is the Baron, and so they get vision control around that, and they kind of try baiting it again, but the enemy team didn't fall for it last time, and so they probably won't again. Instead, they just ARAM it, and so Doaenel is really looking for flank angles, and he's waiting on the enemy team using spells and giving him a window where he can engage and not be CC'd and locked down. Kind of just playing around vision, like, waiting for them to misplay.
Exactly. It's just like you're always looking to like just play off the enemy team usually.
Yeah, because even at the highest level, players are still going to make mistakes. They're still going to get impatient. They might throw abilities that they shouldn't, that they should be holding, and then that's just a window.
Exactly.
And again, the enemy team looks for an engage, seeing that Kai'Sa is on the top side. So they engage onto the Lee Sin, but he does have Guardian Angel, and so he is not going to go down very easily. And this opens up the flank for Doaenel, which is exactly what he was looking for. And he just gets to wreak havoc on the back line. And he does something pretty tricky with the ultimate here.
So Hecarim's ult is a skill shot at the end of the day and can be used to like kill people. So if you see, I E onto the Lux, and we have vision of the Rek'Sai. So I throw my R in a way that the shadow kills the Rek'Sai. And then I also get the fear onto the Vayne. So we just get the kill on Vayne as well, and then clean the team fight. Wherever you land, that's where the fear is, right? But throughout the entire like thing, it does damage. So that's why I wanted to get the R onto the Vayne for the fear, but I also wanted to get the damage onto the Rek'Sai.
I never would have thought of that in a million years. And that's why you're rank 1, I guess. Something like that.
Yeah. It's always fun because like it's so rare that you're able to use your ult as an execute that like whenever you get the opportunity, it just like it looks cool and it gets like Farms a couple pog champs in the chat, so that's nice.
At this point, Doaenel's team is super far ahead. They pick up the Baron, they have a lot of map pressure, and they're also on soul points, so the enemy team has to contest this dragon, and the team fights have just been going in blue side's favor for the entirety of this late game. They send Lee Sin mid with the Baron buff to pressure that inhibitor, and the enemy team either has to answer him or potentially give up the base, or they use this window to engage on a 4v5 fight, which Lee Sin will be able to rotate to, and he's not that important to the team fight anyway. So they fight back to front, and Doaenel is able to pull it off one more time.
Even though Lee is super strong, it's like I'm really the main win con, so we don't really need him for the team fights.
Yeah, because you guys can win the 4v5 at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You basically put them into a position where they either have to go answer this or they have to try and force the 4v5, because as soon as he finishes pushing this, I mean, he could continue pushing or he can come join the team and then they lose their 4v5 opportunity. And so it forces a timer on them, which more pressure means that they're more likely to make a mistake. And they don't even need to pick up the dragon with the Baron buff. This is just a really easy end opportunity after trading Lulu for all 5 of the enemy. And Doaenel's team fighting at the end of the day is just impossible for them to deal with. Vayne doesn't have enough tools to disengage, and it's pretty easy team fight wins once he gets to that point. That's going to bring us to the end of this gameplay review. I wanted to say a huge thank you to Doaenel for collaborating on this video. Be sure to go check out his Twitch and YouTube to continue learning about Hecarim. We hardly even scratched the surface in this video. Also, don't forget to head over to Twitch and get entered for the RP giveaway. Thanks for watching to the end, and I'll see you next time.